In the Mafia there are no mistakes. Only bodies that pay for them. The Last Cigarette of Salvatore Ricci. Ghosts in the Port. The night Salvatore Ricci understood he was going to die, Naples smelled wrong. Like wet gasoline. Like salt from the harbor. And like betrayal. The rain did not fall. It dropped. Heavy. Slow. As if the sky was spitting on everyone's sins. In the old garage he had inherited from his father, a place that no longer fixed cars but cleaned up problems, Salvatore sat alone. He was calmly wiping down an old revolver. The smoke from his cigarette curled upward in slow, lazy spirals. His hands were wrinkled but steady. His knuckles were swollen and scarred. Each mark looked like a map of a fight nobody remembered anymore. Every time he spun the cylinder, the metal click echoed in the room. It sounded like a clock that was running out of time. On the table in front of him lay a few faded photographs. In one, he was younger, standing beside a heavy man in a dark suit. Calm smile. Eyes of a predator. Don Moretti. In the corner of the picture, a boy of about 6, wearing a suit that was too big and a crooked tie. Luca. Salvatore placed the revolver on a rag. He turned off the old radio that was playing a soft Mina song in the background. Then he stayed completely still, listening to the rain beating on the sheet metal roof. He did not need anyone to warn him. In his world, endings seldom came like thunder. They arrived like one more drop in a storm that had been forming for years. The sound of a car engine passing in the street made him turn his head. He did not stand up. Not this time. His mind slipped back to another night, many years earlier. That time, there was no rain. The sky was so clear the moon looked like a silver coin hanging above Naples. The neighborhood church was full. Not for a wedding. Not for a funeral. For something that, in their world, had the same weight. A promise. The Don had placed baby Luca in his arms. The child barely cried. Almost as if he already knew it was better not to draw attention. Salvatore held him clumsily. No one dared laugh at him. Moretti put a heavy hand on his shoulder. "You're going to look after him like he's your own blood," he said. His voice was deep, calm, and did not need to be raised to dominate a room. "If something happens to me, he's your responsibility." Salvatore met his eyes. Then looked down at the baby. Behind them, Father Pietro recited a prayer that nobody was really listening to. "I swear," he said. And he meant it. Inside that old church, with tired saints on the walls, flickering candles and worn wood, he made the only promise he never broke. Years later, sitting alone in his garage, he wondered when that promise had turned into the rope he felt tightening around his neck. The rain grew louder. The clock on the wall read 9:10. It was a slow night. The kind of night when bullets tended to travel faster. The phone on the table vibrated. It didn't ring long. Just a couple of short buzzes. Salvatore glanced at the screen. Unknown number. He sighed, picked it up, and slid his thumb across the glass. Yes. On the other end, a distorted voice. As if the person was speaking from the bottom of a long tunnel. "Ricci, tonight, don't smoke alone." The call cut. No insult. No threat. Nothing else. That kind of message was always worse. Salvatore smiled. A short, sad smile. The way you smile when you hear a joke you've heard 100 times. He looked at the cigarette between his fingers. Then at the revolver on the table. "So that's where we are," he murmured. He was not naive. In the last months, everything had changed too fast. Since the Don got sick. Since Naples began filling up with new sports cars and flashy suits. Since Luca traded the smell of gunpowder for the scent of Swiss banks. Salvatore stood up slowly, as if his own years weighed a little more that night. He walked to the small metal locker at the back of the garage. He opened the door. Inside, hanging like a war uniform, was his black suit. He only wore that suit for 3 things. Funerals. Meetings with the Don. Or when something had to end. As he got dressed, his mind, as always, drifted back to the beginning. Luca had been about 10 years old the first time Salvatore saw him cry for real. Not from physical pain. Yes, he had been hit. But that wasn't what broke him. What shattered him was the Don's silence. That day they went to collect money from a stubborn shopkeeper. Salvatore had told the kid to wait outside. But Luca insisted on going in. "I need to learn," he said. Out of pride, or maybe fear of going against the Don's son, Salvatore gave in. The shopkeeper raised his voice. There was a brief struggle. A fast movement. A knife appeared out of nowhere. Salvatore broke the man's arm against the counter and smashed his face into the wood. All in a few seconds. A coffee cup fell to the floor and exploded into pieces. Luca, standing by the door, had his eyes wide open. His breathing was short and sharp. Later in the car, a few tears slipped out. "It's not about what you did," Luca said. "It's what I saw in his eyes." He knew he was going to die. Salvatore looked at him from the corner of his eye. One hand on the steering wheel. "This isn't a game, ragazzo," he said. "Here, if they don't want to pay, somebody bleeds. Sometimes them. Sometimes us. And you don't feel anything?" "I feel everything. But if I let it out, I'm useless in this life." That night, back at the mansion, the Don was waiting in the inner courtyard, smoking. Luca stepped out of the car. He wiped his face with angry hands. "What did you do to my son?" the Don asked. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. Salvatore didn't answer right away. Anything he said would have sounded like a cheap excuse. "I showed him the job," he said at last. He was going to see it sooner or later. The Don stared at him for a long time. So long that even Salvatore felt a weight growing in his chest. Finally, Moretti nodded slowly. "Be careful," he said. "I don't want him to become me. But if he doesn't, they'll kill him." They went back inside. Luca avoided looking at Salvatore for days. But fear doesn't last forever in that world. It changed into something else. Admiration. Coldness. Hunger. Back in the present, Salvatore finished buttoning his jacket. He looked at himself in the cracked mirror of the garage. He didn't see the man he had been. He saw the inevitable result of every choice he had made. He picked up the revolver, checked the bullets, closed the cylinder, slid it into his shoulder holster. Then he went to a small wooden drawer and opened it. Inside, neatly lined up, were 3 Cuban cigars. He looked at them the way you look at old friends who know too much. He took one, put it in the inside pocket of his suit. "The last one," he whispered. When he stepped out of the garage, Naples greeted him the way it always did. The sound of motorbikes, distant sirens, windows closing as he walked by. He headed toward the port, not because someone ordered it, but because he knew that was where things had to end. Some places are built for goodbyes. The harbor was one of them. As he walked, he thought of the last dinner with the Don, before the illness finally pinned the old man to his bed. They had been in the main dining room of the mansion. Long, heavy table. Food everywhere, but Luca barely touched his plate. The Don coughed between bites. He refused to admit something was wrong. "Business is changing, Salvo," he said, wiping his mouth with a white napkin. "It's not just guns and trucks anymore. Now it's numbers. Screens. Things I don't even understand." Salvatore took a sip of wine. "That's what you have Luca for." The Don smiled. It was a strange smile. Half pride, half fear. "That's why I still have you," he added. "To teach him when to pull the trigger. And when to wait." Luca, sitting across the table, was staring at his phone. It wasn't disrespect. It was distance. He already lived in another world. A world of crypto. Offshore accounts. Russian partners. A world Salvatore neither wanted nor knew how to understand. "Luca," the Don said, "put that away." The young man lifted his eyes, irritated for a second, then obeyed. "When I'm gone," the Don said, with a calm that froze the room. "You will lead this family." A murmur went around the table. Salvatore watched him. He had always known that moment would come. It was logical. But something inside him cracked. Not because he wanted the throne. He didn't trust what the throne would do to the boy. "And he," the Don added, nodding at Salvatore, "will be your shadow." Luca nodded, but his smile never reached his eyes. At the harbor, the stink of fuel and rotting sea slammed into Salvatore like a memory. Cranes cut the gray sky. Orange lights shimmered in puddles of oil and rainwater. He was not alone. In the distance, he saw an Alfa Romeo parked at the end of a narrow path between containers. Headlights off. Waiting. 3 silhouettes stood under the rain. And a fourth a little apart. Straight posture. Expensive coat. Collar turned up. Luca. Salvatore did not speed up. He did not slow down. He walked like someone going to a meeting where nothing would be negotiated. When he was a few meters away, he stopped. He took his time, pulled the cigar from his pocket, placed it between his lips, lit it with a silver lighter the Don had given him the day they became partners. The flame reflected in his tired eyes. "I guess if I'm here, it means you already found me guilty," he said, blowing smoke into the night. Luca stared at him. His face was tight. His hands hid inside his coat pockets. The 3 men behind him wore suits. Their guns were out of sight, but ready. "They say you talked to the police," Luca said. No introduction. No warm-up. His voice shook, just a little, at the end. Salvatore smiled. Not kindly. More like a needle pressing into skin. "They say a lot of things," he replied. "They say the coke is coming purer from Spain. They say the Russians are good partners. They say you know what you're doing. A joke won't save you." "You think I came here to be saved?" The rain slapped the ground like weak applause. Thunder rolled somewhere far away. "Did you do it?" Luca asked. Salvatore looked at him. "Not like you look at an enemy. Like you look at a son who just failed. When you had a fever at 7 and your father was in Milan, who held you all night?" he asked quietly. "When you fired a gun for the first time and couldn't stop throwing up, who told you that was a good sign? Who taught you not to shake when you pulled the trigger?" Luca clenched his jaw. "You still haven't answered. I never betrayed your father. Not once. And I sure as hell didn't betray you." Silence dropped over them. The men in the back exchanged tense looks. One of them took a small step forward. Luca raised a hand without looking, and the man froze. "We had a leak," Luca said. Someone talked. Someone gave away routes, names, shipments. Every time I moved, the police got too close. And the rich kid in the new suit decided the old man who doesn't understand crypto must be the rat, Salvatore replied. "Don't push me, Salvo. If you still listened the way you used to, you'd know I'm not the problem. But now, you listen more to screens than to people." For the first time, Luca looked away. Just for a second. His eyes flicked toward one of his men. Young. Sharp features. Strong jaw. A dead cigarette between his fingers. Donde? The new favorite. The loyal dog. The one who got the dirty work done without asking questions. The one who had appeared from nowhere and always seemed nearby when things went a little too well. Salvatore followed that glance. In that instant, everything lined up. Not because he hadn't suspected before, but because now it was obvious. "Ah," he said softly. "I see." Dante stared back, defiant. "You don't know anything, old man." Salvatore let out a short laugh. Smoke slipped out of the sides of his mouth. "I can smell a rat," he said. "And you stink of fear." Dante stepped forward. His hand hovered near the gun under his coat. "Luca, let me." "Shut up," Luca snapped. His voice came out louder than he intended. For a moment, only the rain spoke. Water sliding off container roofs. The faint metal groan of a ship moving in the docks. It doesn't matter who actually did it, Luca said. Even he didn't believe his own words. What matters is what people think. If it looks like I don't punish betrayal, they'll see me as weak. If they think your hands are dirty, and I don't act, they'll eat you alive, Salvatore finished for him. I know. I taught you that. He went quiet, then let his free hand drop by his side. The other held the cigar, still burning calm and steady. Then do it right, he said. Don't send your dogs. If you're going to kill your father, look him in the eye. The word father hit harder than any bullet. Luca stepped closer, slow. His eyes shone, with rage, fear, or something worse, guilt. He pulled a black pistol from his coat, held it with both hands, aimed at Salvatore's chest. You're the one who told me family comes first, he said. His voice was fractured. Salvatore looked at him with ancient, exhausted sadness. And that's exactly why you're standing there, ragazzo. He let the cigar drop from the corner of his mouth, caught it between his fingers, took one last deep drag. The smoke flowed out slowly, mixing with the rain. Then he opened his hand. The cigar fell, bounced once, rolled until it nearly touched a puddle. He loosened his jacket button, reached into his shoulder holster, pulled out the revolver. Everyone tensed, guns raised, fingers tightened. But Salvatore didn't aim. He held the gun by the barrel and let it fall. The weapon hit the wet concrete with a dull sound. Lay there, useless. My time is done, he said. The one thing you'll never erase is what I taught you. That will haunt you longer than my ghost. Luca's teeth clenched. His hands shook. He no longer looked like the cold boss of the last months. He looked like the boy who didn't want to see blood. The teenager who cried after his first shot. If I don't do this, he whispered, they'll think you still have power over me. You've got it backwards, Salvatore replied. I'm giving it to you. Right here. Right now. You kill me, and the city will know you're the one in charge. But remember this. Burn it into your brain. In this life, we don't kill the traitor. We replace him. Dante frowned. Something in that sentence bothered him more than the whole scene itself. Luca's eyes filled with water. Not full tears. Just that shine that burns more. I'm sorry, he said. Salvatore tilted his head, barely, as if accepting a sentence he had been waiting for a long time. No, he said. You're not. Not yet. 3 shots split the night. The echoes bounced between the containers, climbed the wet walls of the alley, merged with a distant roll of thunder. Salvatore's body jerked back, then dropped into a puddle that, for a second, reflected the red lights of the Alfa Romeo like tongues of fire. The cigar floated a few inches away, dead, spinning slowly in dirty water. Nobody spoke. The men lowered their guns. Breaths came harsh and uneven. Dante stared at the corpse. He felt something like victory, and something like relief. Luca didn't move. His arm was still extended. His knuckles were white. What do we do with him? One of the men asked. Luca waited before answering. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded worn out. What you do with family, he said. Make sure they don't find him in a dumpster. He turned his back and walked away into the rain. None of them dared walk too close behind him. Naples slept as it always did that night. Restless, but used to the sound of gunfire. A year went by. A year in which newspapers stopped printing the name of the old Don. They spoke of the new king instead. A year in which luxury cars crowded the gates of the Moretti mansion. Parties grew louder. Eyes grew quieter. A year in which the Russians stopped being temporary partners and became something closer to invisible owners. Luca moved into a penthouse overlooking the sea. He no longer lived in the mansion. He said he liked something more modern. From the 30th floor, Naples looked small, almost harmless. like a model of a city. During the day, the sun stained the water a filthy blue. At night, the ship lights looked like drunk fireflies. He had everything a young boss could ask for: power, money, women, respect built on fear. And yet, when the place got quiet, the silence gnawed at him. The first strange thing happened one early morning. He had been drinking too much. He got up to pour himself another whiskey. He walked barefoot down the hallway. The lights turned on automatically, throwing a cold hotel-white glow over the floor. As he opened the bottle, he felt it. A smell. Tobacco. Strong cigar smoke. The kind almost nobody used anymore. A scent he knew all too well. He turned around fast, glass in hand. His heart banging against his ribs. No one there. The penthouse was empty. Just him. And the city outside the giant windows. He walked to the glass and stopped. For one brief second, in the reflection, he thought he saw a shape standing behind him. Not clear. Just a darker patch among the other shadows. Holding something that looked like a cigar. He blinked. The shape was gone. "I'm just tired," he muttered, trying to believe it. That night, he left the drink half full on the counter. Went back to bed without touching it. The next days, small things began to pile up. Drawers left open when he was sure he had closed them. A faint smell of smoke on his jacket, though he hadn't lit anything. A silver lighter, identical to Salvatore's, appearing on his desk when he swore he had put it away. At first, he ignored it. Blamed stress. Too much pressure. The normal price of power. Then things became harder to dismiss. His men started to die. Not in raids. Not in shootouts with other families. Nothing that simple. One was found floating in the harbor. Lungs full of water. An extinguished cigar between his teeth. Another was discovered in his car. Engine still running. Garage door closed. Poisoned by his own exhaust. A silver lighter locked in his stiff hand. A third appeared in an alley. No signs of struggle. Just a single clean shot between the eyes. And a cigarette but tucked in the pocket of his suit. The rumor spread fast. In bars. On corners. Between whispers. They say old Ricci never really left. They say if you smell cigar smoke and nobody's there, you're next. Luca forbade anyone from saying Salvatore's name around him. But that only made people say it more often behind his back. One afternoon, while he checked numbers on his tablet, someone knocked. One of his men walked in holding an envelope. It was thick paper. High quality. Hand-delivered by some kid who didn't know who the addressee was. Inside was a single photograph. An old, blurry shot of the church where, long ago, Salvatore had held him as a baby. On the back, written in blue ink, a single line. Ghosts collect their debts too. No signature. There didn't need to be one. That same night, he ordered a full sweep of his world. He hunted for the mole. Demanded reports. Interrogated his men. Even had the Russians followed. Nothing fit. No obvious leaks. But something, somewhere, was still rotting from the inside. Then someone finally said the name he already knew but did not want to face. Dante. The kid who had been his right hand for a year. The one present for every key decision. The one who had conveniently disappeared a few hours before the cops raided an important warehouse. Luca was in his office. He had redecorated it with glass and steel, replacing the old photos of the dawn with clean lines and cold surfaces. One of his men entered, pale. "We can't find him," the man said. "Dante. And there's something else." He set another envelope on the desk. Luca opened it. Inside was a police report. Taped phone calls. Wire transfers. Dates. Amounts. If you followed the lines carefully, they formed one name. Dante. His stomach knotted. Not because of the betrayal. In their world, betrayal was a currency. Because that night at the port, he had chosen the easy target. He had pointed his gun at the wrong man. He stood up so fast his chair rolled back and hit the wall. "Find him," he ordered. "Vito, Marco, everyone. Check his house. His mother's place. Every bar he drinks in. I don't care where he's hiding." They didn't have to look far. They found Dante 3 days later. Or rather, they found what was left of him. In his own garage. Hanging from a beam. His body swinging a little in a draft no one could feel. No signs of a fight. The chair lay tipped over a few centimeters from his feet. It could have passed as suicide. But there were details Luca could not ignore. The knot on the rope was perfect. Too perfect. Professional. There was no note. And the worst part. Dante had a cigar in his mouth. Unlit. Luca stayed alone with the body. His men kept their distance, whispering. The odor of rubber, oil, and metal merged with another smell. Tobacco. The same tobacco. "You see," a voice said inside his head. Salvatore's voice. "Come. Dry. We don't kill the traitor. We replace him." He didn't know if he truly heard it or if his own guilt had decided to speak with Salvatore's tone. From that day on, sleep stopped visiting him properly. Nights stretched, turned thick. Sometimes he woke up certain he had heard footsteps in the hall. The click of a lighter. A deep inhale. He would get up, walk the whole penthouse, turn on every light. Nothing. Just him. And the huge windows throwing his reflection back at him. One night, things changed. He dreamed of the church. Of the dawn handing him over as a baby. Of Salvatore looking at him with that strange mix of respect and pity. He woke up sweating, breathing hard. The clock read 3:13. His throat was dry. He headed for the kitchen, then changed his mind halfway and walked toward the terrace. He slid open the glass door and stepped outside. Sea air hit his face. Damp. Salty. Beneath him, Naples was still awake. A few bars open. Taxis gliding along like tired fireflies. He leaned on the rail. Elbows against cold metal. He dragged a hand over his face. Then he felt it. Clear. Undeniable. That smell. Not like a memory. Not subtle. Strong. Present. Cuban cigar. He froze. He didn't dare turn around. "You know," a voice said behind him, calm as ever, "from up here the city looks less dangerous than it is." His heart almost stopped. He didn't turn at once. He closed his eyes. Swallowed. "You're not here," he whispered. "You're dead." The voice did not answer right away. Silence filled with a soft sound. The scrape of a match. The crackle of tobacco catching fire. He turned slowly. The terrace was empty. Just him. The railing. 2 chairs. A low table. Nothing else. But the smell was still there. And on the table, something that hadn't been there before. A lit cigar resting on the edge of a glass ashtray. Smoke climbed in a perfect spiral. His legs gave out. He dropped into a chair. He stared at the cigar like it was a snake. "What do you want from me?" he spat. "Come on, Salvo. You want me to say I was wrong? You want me to ask for forgiveness? Is that it?" No answer. Only the quiet burn of tobacco. He stayed there a long time. When he finally got up, feeling drunker than he was, the cigar was still glowing. He looked at it one last time and went back inside. As soon as the glass door closed, the smell faded. Over the next days, Luca's world shrank. Walls seemed to move closer. Air felt heavier. He stopped visiting some places. He avoided the old garage, even though no one dared touch it. Russian partners started to speak louder. Demanded more. Faster. The police, strangely, always seemed to be looking the other way. Almost as if someone invisible was adjusting the game board. The balance felt wrong. Too clean. Too controlled. And in the middle of that, guilt sat under his skin like a splinter. Invisible. Impossible to ignore. One afternoon, During a meeting with two politicians in a fancy harbor restaurant, a waiter approached. He held a small box wrapped in red velvet paper. "For you, signore," the waiter said, placing the box on the table. "I didn't order anything," Luca replied, frowning. "Someone left it. I don't know who." Luca's stomach tightened. The politicians smiled, clueless. "Open it," one of them joked. "Maybe it's wine." Luca untied the ribbon, lifted the lid. Inside were 6 Cuban cigars. The same brand Salvatore used to smoke. Perfectly aligned. On top of them lay a folded note. He opened it. He recognized the handwriting instantly. Not because of the style. Because of the way some letters looked like they had been written by a hand that had seen too much. "I told you. Ghosts always collect." No name. There did not need to be one. The politicians kept talking, but their words became a distant buzz. He closed the box and stood up without saying a word. "Everything all right, signore?" one of his men asked outside. "Walk with me," Luca said. He left the restaurant. Walked toward the port. Ship lights painted broken trails on the water. Cold wind blew tiny drops of spray into his face. He walked without a destination. Until he realized where his feet had taken him. The same narrow path between containers. The same spot where, a year earlier, Salvatore's blood had mixed with the dirty water. He stopped. He looked at the ground. There was no trace of anything, of course. Cities swallow their stories fast. But he saw them anyway. He opened the velvet box. Took out one cigar. Brought it to his nose. The smell dragged up an image. Salvatore in the old garage. Cleaning guns. Talking about things that had sounded like cheap philosophy back then and now felt like warnings. He reached into his coat pocket. His fingers closed around a silver lighter. The same one. He had no idea how it got there. He didn't remember putting it in his pocket. But its weight was familiar. He lit the cigar. Took a long drag. Smoke filled his lungs like liquid fire. He coughed. Almost choked. He was not used to it. "What do you want from me?" he asked again, quieter this time. He stared at the mouth of the alley, as if expecting someone to step out of the shadow. This time, the answer came. Not as a sound he could point to, but as a cold clarity dropping into his mind. Salvatore's voice. Come. Sharp as a bullet. "I want to see you learn." The words cut straight through him. In his head, he saw himself. A child crying in the car after that first violent collection job. A teenager shaking with a gun in his hand. A young man dazzled by easy money. And then, in the rain, aiming at the only man who had ever truly protected him. He understood then that killing the old man had not been a leader's decision. It had been cowardice. He had chosen the shortcut, the one the new partners love. Find someone to blame. Erase him. Call it victory. But ghosts are not smoke. They are choices. They are the voices of people who knew you better than you know yourself. He finished the cigar in silence. Dropped it. Crushed it under his heel. He could have gone back to his penthouse. To his accounts. To his cars. He could have chosen to keep moving forward and trust time to bury even the worst mistakes. Something in that alley did not let him. He looked toward the end of the passage. For a second, he thought he saw a shape against the wall. Hands in pockets. Watching him. That old mix of disappointment and affection only fathers carry when they no longer expect anything, but they keep looking anyway. "I can't give you your life back," Luca said, more to himself than to anyone else. "But I can do one thing." That night, he made the most dangerous choice of his life. Not to kill. He had done enough of that. To touch what nobody in that world ever touched. The structure. The system. The unwritten rules that kept them alive and rotten at the same time. He called his main men. Sat them down. He spoke plainly. No poetry. No dressing. He listed Russian partners who had to disappear. Politicians who would no longer receive envelopes. routes that were going to close. If we keep going like this, he said, we'll end up as well-paid employees for somebody else. And I wasn't born to be an employee. Some looked at him with admiration, others with fear. A couple with that cold expression that says betrayal has already happened in their heads. He didn't care. It was too late in his story to search for loyalty. In the months that followed, Naples felt the shift. Some business slowed down. Others turned more violent. The streets smelled like gunpowder more often. Distant partners tightened the screws. They did not like when someone went off script. For the first time, Luca wasn't just trying to win. He was trying to pay. Pay himself. Settle a debt no one else could see. The price came, as always, in blood. They tried to kill him more than once. They tried to buy his men. They tried to cut him off from everyone. Every step he took felt like walking barefoot on broken glass. One night, after escaping an ambush by inches, he returned to his penthouse with blood on his shirt and his nerves shredded. He poured himself a whiskey. No ice. He slid down to the floor with his back against the window, staring at the city below. "This is your fault," he said out loud. Not sure if he meant Salvatore or himself. No reply. But a familiar smell slipped into his nose. Soft. Not overwhelming. Tobacco. Present. Almost gentle. He smiled for the first time in months. A real smile. Tired. Crooked. "Yeah, I know," he muttered. "This is what you wanted from the start, right? For me to finally learn." Salvatore's figure never appeared fully. There was no clear ghost. No miracle. What there was, felt even stronger. The constant sense that, in the worst moments, he wasn't entirely alone. A year after receiving the box of cigars, the harbor saw Luca walk down that same alley again. It was raining. Not as hard as the first time. Just enough to turn the ground into thin rivers. He came alone. He had left his men far behind. No explanations. He walked to the exact spot where Salvatore had fallen. Stopped. Looked down. Then up at the sky. He pulled a small object from his pocket. A silver lighter. He held it in his hand for a moment. Then let it drop into the nearest puddle. The metal flashed once under the water. Then went dark. He didn't light a cigar. Didn't smoke. Didn't ask for forgiveness. He just spoke a single sentence. The wind stole part of it. Not all. "I won't be better than you, old man," he said. "But I'll try not to be worse." He turned his back on the alley and walked away. The rain kept falling. Naples stayed Naples. Restless. Dirty. Alive. Ghosts kept collecting what they were owed. Somewhere between the sound of rain and the groan of ships, a short laugh seemed to echo. Rough. Almost proud. Or maybe it was just memory. Salvatore's last cigar had gone out a long time ago. But the smoke he left behind, the one you can't see, still hung over the city, mixed with the sins of every man who confused power with absolution. And every time someone, in some dark corner of Naples, lit a cigarette without knowing why, for just a moment, they swore they weren't smoking alone.